Welcome to the 134th episode of the Flip Learning Remixed podcast. The podcast that mixes cutting-edge technology with learning. Yeah, I just drew a blank on our tagline.
I'm so sorry.
The holidays were. I took a long break and haven't come back from that break yet. So
I think a lot of teachers are in that same boat.
So I'm your host, Troy Cockrum, and my
And
co-host, Joan Brown.
hi, how are you?
Good,
Doing
Joan.
good. Doing good. I'm looking out at snow, the very first snow of the year. A little late, but better late than never. It's just unfortunate that we are recording this on a weekend, so it's not during a school day.
Yeah, well, my school rarely cancels for snow, so I mean, we've had two. Today is our second snowfall of the year, but we don't ever cancel or delay for snow. So,
Well, that's a whole nother story from where I am. We cancel often. All right. But we were in school this week and last week, and we had the opportunity to get a visit. And that's part of what our podcast is about. We had a visit from Google.
Yep. I didn't get the visit.
I'm sorry.
Because my school is not big enough to get the visit.
And we had to actually get special permission to get so many kids through. We got just under 500 kids through.
Wow.
What are we talking about? Makes sense of this for our listeners.
So Google Expedition, and we've talked about Google Expedition a little bit. We've talked about Google Cardboard a lot on this podcast. We've done. I looked it up. We did a podcast on virtual field trips. It was episode number 70, and it was in December of 2013.
2 years ago.
2 years ago, and almost 70 episodes ago. And so 2 years ago, we were talking about Google Cardboard. Mm-hmm. So we should give ourselves a pat on the back.
We knew what was happening. I knew as soon as I saw it that this had educational relevance. Mm-hmm. And now I am more than convinced after watching students go through an entire, what we call Google Expedition. So I'm going to explain to those that are listening what it is that we're talking about. We're talking about virtual reality, in which students are immersed. They're in the middle of a 360-degree tour. They can look all around them and see things above their head, below their feet, all the way around. So imagine for a moment that you're a scuba diver. What would you see if you turned your head? Of course, you're wearing goggles when you're a scuba diver, but what would you see when you turned your head all the way around, or maybe you'd swim and turn around? That's the feeling of being on a Google Expedition. And Google Expeditions are now touring the United States. And they're offering this to different schools depending on the size of the school and your ability to accommodate them. And so our school, Irving, in Springfield, Virginia, was very, very happy to be a part of this pioneer program. And we got 2 sets of Google Expedition kits for the day. And the kit is comprised of 30 Google Cardboards. That's the viewer. And the viewer is made of cardboard, that's for sure. And they have a cell phone inside the viewer. And the kit provided the cell phone. So the kids are actually looking at a cell phone through the viewer. And then the rest of the kit is a tablet for the teacher. And the tablet has a beta version of their software that they're going to be offering coming up in summer, is my understanding. They're going to provide this to schools. And the software connects all those cell phones that are in the Google Cardboard viewers with sort of a control panel, if you will. And you can choose where do you want the kids to go. And you also can choose what you say about what they're seeing. It is very scripted out. They have now over 200 Google Expeditions already scripted out for teachers to
Because
choose from.
when we saw it at ISTE in June, they had 6.
Exactly. So they've really gone all out. I had a blast with it. I gave, out of the 22 tours, we had 22 sets of kids come through and do this. I must have done over half of them. And I had a great time doing it, just pointing out things that were fun and interesting. And our group, because I teach in a middle school, it was 7th graders, and their curriculum had to do with biomes, and there was an entire expedition on biomes, so keyed in right on the curriculum. And the kids all got to go to a desert, a taiga, a temperate forest, and so on, and see things there. For example, they saw a redwood cedar, and the first thing they do is start looking up, and every kid is going, wow, because they really felt like they were next to that tree and could see the immense size of that tree. That's not something you can do without virtual reality. You know?
Yeah.
Some of the other things we did, we went into Rio de Janeiro, and we were looking at different sites from aerial view as well as though you were on the ground. You can place yourself at the foot of the Christos Redeemer and just get the amazing view of how big that statue is. You can also put yourself over the beach, the Copacabana beach, and fly over it. And those are the kinds of things that the kids really are amazed at. And like I said, there were so many. Some of them were science oriented. Some of them were social studies oriented. There are now expeditions about career choices. I did not take the kids on one of those, but just as an opportunity, even for, I know my math teacher was looking and going, which one can I use? And we were thinking, oh, well, the careers might be good, right?
Yeah. You know, it's Google has this resource that a lot of people forget. They use personally, but they forget that it can be used in education as Google Street View. And Google has, you know, however millions of images already in Street View that do the same thing in this. So, you know, I've used Street View in the past to show students different places and to get them an idea, you know, if we're reading about a place, a location or something, to get them really immersed in what it looks like as far as, you know, going to Street View and things like that. And there's a lot of places. I mean, Street View is a misnomer anymore because it's not things that can be accessed via a street. They have, you know, you can go inside the Colosseum in Rome, or you can go to Antarctica. You can go, I think, to the top of Mount Everest, I think was one of them. There's all kinds of, you can go inside the White House. There's a street view of inside the White House. You can go to the Great Barrier Reef. And so they have, yes. Google has all of these images already using the Street View. And this is a nice way to tie it in to cardboard, because even though Street View is nice, it's even more impressive when you're immersed in the environment.
Sure. I know 2 years ago when we did our show, we did take some of the websites that are doing these 360-degree VR images, and some of the websites like Airpano, they have such high resolution that you could be putting this on an enormous screen and nothing would be pixelated, nothing would be blurry, and you feel like you are there. The difference with VR, the actual viewers, is that you are even more immersed because it's all the way around the back of your head. Right. Whereas being on a screen, even though it's very, very impressive, it's still not quite the full. I saw kids when they were doing the Google Expeditions, they were actually reaching out with their hand, you know, which was really fun to watch, because there was many kids at our school that had never, ever experienced that. And that first time in a virtual reality is something you just can't duplicate when they finally realize what's happening. And we told them, we had to tell them to turn around because they had no idea. They didn't know that they should move their head or their body.
Right.
And when they did, they were just overwhelmed.
Yeah, I mean, when I show people cardboard and they're just looking straight ahead, I say, look to your left or look to your right. They're like, what? And they turn and they're like, oh my goodness. You know, it's like, you don't think of something like that. There's, you know, VR has been around for a while, but not accessible to most people.
Right. So if, you know, the future of this, we were kind of doing a little research, and I'm curious, you know, who is out there trying to develop for education. And of course, just this last week, Google announced that they are coming up with a whole virtual reality department.
Right.
So they're putting their money in that. How much of that department is going to be devoted to education? I think it's pretty clear. They started in education here. They realized right away that Google Cardboard was kind of a novelty for the business world, but for educators, it was a huge, huge jump from what we can get from a textbook. All of my teachers, all of my science teachers there were saying, how can we get this? How can we get this next year? And they already had earmarked at least 3 or 4 lessons that they said go right with our curriculum. It's already built in. I know exactly how I would use this in my class. So Google's already ahead of the game, I think, as far as planning for education.
For education, yeah.
I did a little bit of research on some of our other competitors. Of course, Oculus Rift made themselves publicly available to purchase just in like the last week or so, last 2 weeks. Have you seen a price on that?
I have, but I don't remember. I want to say it was like $250, $300, somewhere in that range, but I can't remember for sure.
Right.
Certainly more than I could afford to just to play with.
I would agree.
You know, in the interesting part about Oculus Rift is Facebook owns them, but Google tried to buy them before Facebook did, and Facebook just came in with a better offer or whatever. So Google saw the power of Oculus Rift or VR headsets and tried to buy them, but just didn't. Right.
I can't find a whole lot to do with education and Oculus Rift. I did find that they did a demonstration, if you will, in the Czech Republic, of all places. And they gave several high school classrooms some Oculus Rift and some motion detectors. And they went through like classes in biology and anatomy, where they were into a skeletal model, for example, with interactive components, and they could pull it apart and put it back together and so forth. Really, really cool. But as you pointed out, there's a price tag to go with that high level of technology. And it's not just the viewer itself. You've got to have companies out there building the applications to go with it, because it is very proprietary. I'm sure they do, because they do see that there's always going to be a need for virtual reality, especially I think in like the medical field. You know, that's a given. The problem is the money for a public school, you know, K through 12. I just don't see them getting classroom sets of Oculus Rift yet.
Right.
Unless that price comes way down.
Since we're on the price, did they give you any kind of indication of what expeditions would cost?
So it's my understanding that app, the Google Expeditions app that would be available for a tablet for the teacher to use, probably will be free or very minimal. The issue is how to connect it with all of the cell phones in the room.
Right.
And when Expeditions came, they had their own separate routers. Okay, so they already had it set up.
Okay.
But they're talking in terms of possibly being very similar to like Kahoot, where the student would simply type in a code and that would have them connect.
Okay.
Or maybe even through Google Classroom. Now, if you've ever used Share for Classroom, you know that you just need the extension.
Right.
I'm wondering if there's not going to be a way through Google Classroom to simply connect an Expedition and away you go. That would be ideal, and there's no learning curve involved there for any teacher. I have to tell you, even bless their souls, even our least techie were able to right away pick up that tablet and understand how to use the app. It was that intuitive, very simple. One little feature that you remember is how you can see who's looking at what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Really, really cool. The tablet, if say you're talking about a jellyfish and you want everyone in the class to view that jellyfish that you're talking about, you simply tap on it and every kid that has the viewer up sees an arrow, which tells them which way to turn their head. Once they get to the thing you're looking at, it puts a circle around it. And you on your tablet as a teacher can see how many students are actually looking at the right thing. Talk about on-task behavior. You're absolutely in control of that. I loved it. It was really well done.
Well, I had a 5th grade teacher see Expeditions at a Google Summit recently, and she came back and how can we use this?
Mm-hmm.
That's a big question because, I told her, even if we can get kits of Google Cardboard for $5. So we could, in theory, get you a classroom set of cardboard, but we don't have enough devices. And because we have iPads and Chromebooks, we don't have a device that fits in
Exactly.
And they're 5th graders, so most of them don't have their own device. So we're still in the planning process of how we can get enough devices to make it a classroom activity as opposed to an individual activity.
Right.
And so we're still working on that. So that's kind of one of the reasons why I wondered what this price point is of a classroom set of Expeditions, because they're going to have to include the device that they're putting with it. And so
right. Every one of these had a Nexus phone in it, and it was a full-fledged phone.
Okay.
I was surprised at that. I almost feel like you'd do better with an iTouch or something, but of course I think they wanted a Google-created device in there. I just don't know how that's going to work without an actual phone or something at least that can load an app. And there's nothing out there right now that is comparable that's the right size. So that is an issue. We feel as though we would have enough students that would have cell phones that we'd be able to do this as a sharing activity, that we would have at least half of the kids in the class would have a cell phone and be able to load the app. The app is free, and it wouldn't be so bad, right?
Interesting. I showed it to a 2nd grader, and she took the phone out of cardboard and just looked at she would like sit there and turn around, and for her it was in stereoscopic view, so it had this. But for her, and I don't know, it was unusual that she preferred it outside of cardboard. I mean, she liked the experience of having it on her head, but then I think she either didn't like holding it or what, but she was just as impressed with the image taking the phone out of cardboard.
That's funny. That's really different. Well, I think some of it, I'll be honest with you, some of our kids, it was overwhelming. They did have to put it down. Some of them got a little bit of motion sickness. I have to be aware of that. And some of them had a little bit of trouble vision-wise. They were sort of like, well, it kind of gives me a headache. Some kids wearing glasses. were experimenting with having the glasses off or putting them on to see where they could get the clearer view. So I don't know that all of that, the focal length and everything, has been completely worked out.
Right. And from my understanding, and I don't remember who, I think I heard this when we were at ISTE, one of the developers telling me this, but so it's not official, but from my understanding, they didn't put a head strap on cardboard because they want people to be able to take it off immediately.
Exactly. And you'll see that too if the kids think that they can walk around. We actually did a lot of safety right before it. We had them next to a table. We did have them stand, but we had them next to a table, and we asked them to be sure and stand next to that table and not move. And we demonstrated how to turn 360 degrees, but not to walk around. Because, I mean, I could see kids falling over. I could, all kinds of things that would be happening. And it is possible that, some kid could get very disoriented fast if they weren't used to it. But kids are going to get used to this fast, because I don't know if you know this, Hasbro, you remember the old Viewmasters?
Yeah, I've seen that. I saw that back in June when they released that.
Yeah, so now you can buy your child a Viewmaster that is really just a Google Cardboard viewer. You put your phone in it and you can run Google Cardboard in it. It's the same thing, only it's a sturdier plastic. So I was almost thinking of this for schools that maybe felt like cardboard wasn't sturdy enough. For $20, you can buy a Viewmaster and get your kids going.
The tricky part is you have to buy the content too.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's like $15 a module or something like that. I mean, it's when I looked into it, I thought, well, I could get one of those and test it out. But then I looked at how much the little, in essence, the circular cards that you would have put in the old viewfinders, how much those things cost.
Mm-hmm.
And they were, it was just, I didn't think it was worth it for me just to test it out. Now I've heard of some people that have gotten it for their kids and like it. A friend of mine was testing it in his school also didn't get Expedition, so he bought like 5 or 6 Google Cardboard, and he bought like 5 or 6 Viewmasters, and he was kind of putting together his own experience, and I need to talk to him and find out how that went.
Oh, good.
But yeah, it's I suspect a lot of companies will start building these branded headsets that are either plastic or cardboard, but they're a little bit higher quality, so they last a little bit better.
There's one out there called VR Box, and that one is the same idea. It's just basically a Google Cardboard, only it's made out of something more sturdy, and it does have a head strap. So watch for that.
Okay.
But what about the DIY? What about making your own experience, like you were saying this teacher is doing?
Yeah. It's once the Expedition app gets out available to the public, it'll be interesting if you can create, how easy it is to create your own classroom set of cardboard and use the Expedition app and use your own devices. And
I think that will be phenomenal. You can make your own panos, your own, if you will, 360-degree experiences now. So I know I've made one with photospheres just on my iPhone, or I guess it was on my Android, because that one's a photosphere. Is if you want it to be for cardboard, I think it had to be on the Android, and didn't take me any time at all. Really, it's a self-paced. It just says take a picture every time you see a dot, and you have to turn 360 degrees and go up above you and down below. And once you're done, you can view that in cardboard.
And I've done that with one of I think the Photosphere app that does that. And the problem I ran into, it was great for like a nature scene, but I tried it on Main Street USA at Disney World, and I got half of people, and it was a mess because people were moving, and I couldn't get everybody there to stand still. So
at Disney?
Yeah, it's amazing, so if you want to show just a nature setting that's not moving, or if you want to show, like I went to the courtroom that they used in To Kill a Mockingbird one time. This is prior to all this technology existing. I would love to have a photosphere of the courtroom so I could not only show the kids the courtroom, but let them see how the balcony has a role in the story based on if they were sitting on the floor and the balcony's up and around them. You know, so something like that you could do with this Photosphere app. But if you want something where people are moving or cars are going by or something, it's not going to work well.
Yes, I can understand that. That'd be tough. And then, you know, if you're like me, you want to take the kids to historical places. You're never going to be able to go in when there aren't people there.
Right.
Right.
So my solution, and I got this from Jim Sill, who's been on the podcast, gosh, a long time ago, but is an awesome speaker, and but is the Ricoh Theta.
Right.
And it's RICOH. The company is Ricoh. The camera, the model is Theta, CTHETA. And again, I'm drawing a blank. I think it's $250 to $300. It may have went up because I always tell people I paid $250 for it, and then they look it up and it's like $300, and I'm like, well, maybe I got it when it was cheaper or something. I don't know, but it's not cheap. But if you're creating a lot of these, it's an easy way to create the photospheres because it's just, and you can do it on remote. So like, because some of my vacation pictures, I'm standing there and you see my hand holding the camera. But because, you know, if it's a busy place, I'm not going to set it down and then go out of view and use the remote feature with my camera not viewable.
Sure.
It takes the images, but it also takes video. And we were talking about that a little bit off air. I need to experiment more with the video because you can upload the images and the video to your Google Cardboard. You have to upload them to your photo gallery in Google, and then they transfer over to Cardboard. But there is a camera, an inexpensive camera compared to the camera that Google uses to do this for people who really want to do it, or who do a lot of them, or if you want students to be able to do them, or
I agree, and in one way, it's actually going through the process of it that's cool. Are we losing some connectivity?
Yeah, your image is frozen, but I can still hear you. So,
okay, sorry about that. I don't know. I think it's because you were talking about the lowest end as far as, I mean, we can use a cell phone or we can use the Ricoh Theta. I think it's because I hit on this website from GoPro where this is the high end.
Okay.
GoPro is coming out with, and you have to actually register to even be included in their pilot here for the Odyssey, which is 16 GoPro cameras on a revolving device that you can take 360-degree video with. I'm going to close that webpage. I think you might have heard it actually go boom at one point, but I think it was using all my bandwidth. That's going to be for the ultra professional. But yes, even in Cardboard, you can go to the YouTube channel and be immersed in a video, which to me is exciting for a variety of reasons. You can be involved in some action that's actually happening. But that's future. I mean, we're pretty excited just about the stills. Just letting people know if they aren't ready for this, they ought to try at least the stills.
Yeah, I mean, we're getting really close to it being very easy for teachers to be able to do this on their own. And so teachers should be prepared for this and should be thinking about how they can use it. And a lot of teachers don't have much trouble at all coming up with uses. But we're not quite there yet. I mean, it took me a little while to figure out how to do it. It's, you know, um, and so, you know, I'm ahead of the curve on a lot of technology, and it took me, you know, a little while. I wouldn't say a long while, but a little while to figure out how to do it. Someone who's not very technologically savvy at all is probably not. They're probably not going to figure it out.
Well, if you're teaching a subject in which the spatial relationship to a human is a part of the story you're trying to tell, and I always think in terms of history or something. For example, beaches of Normandy. You're trying to explain what it was like to get off one of the ships and trudge onto the shore. And I think putting a kid there gives them a better perspective.
Right.
That type of human interaction to the space around them.
The other thing I noticed about expeditions, and I started to notice it about several more of the things that they're putting out over the last few months, is they include audio with it. And so you hear the birds, you know, flying by in the background. You hear all that, and that adds so much more to the experience. It's just amazing how much. Even when I was letting that second grader look at it, somebody off that she wasn't looking at was talking, and she kept saying, "Who's talking?" She kept looking to her left. Who's talking? And it was just somebody in the scene. It was like a carnival or something, and somebody nearby the camera was talking, and she kept saying, "Who's talking?" And so it just adds to the experience, and the immersiveness of the environment is adding the audio to it. So that's one of my next goals, is to take some of the photospheres I've created and see if I can add audio to them to really make them much more immersive.
Wow, so it's surround sound. I mean, if you've got headphones on, it sure could be. And that would make you turn. That would make you turn. So that your attention would go someplace else. Oh, wow. Love that. I'm big into sound. I think that's the ambiance that you have to make it reality. And that could do it right there.
Yeah. So we talked a little bit about virtual reality, and we talked a little bit about Oculus Rift, but there's other people making virtual reality, but not to the point that it's consumer price pointed. But there's another thing called augmented reality. And I guess the best way that I've heard described is virtual reality puts you in a different world. And so it's virtual reality. Augmented reality keeps you in your same world, but augments it with something else. So the Microsoft HoloLens is augmented reality. You can still see the reality around you, but it's just adding different things to it. And Daiquiri is another one that does augmented reality, and they've added a helmet that you can wear with a clear shield that comes down in front of you. And I don't think they've released that publicly yet. The only people I know that have it are Brad Wade and Drew Mintock, and they work for Daiquiri, so that's why they have it. But this concept of augmented reality is also a use for education, where people can see their real world, but then pop up instructional videos on, you know, how to do this. Maybe, you know, I don't want to visualize a world where we're wearing helmets to take tests or interact with content, but think about, you know, if you're trying to solve a complex chemistry equation, and you can pull up the elements and interact with them on your screen, and do that right there over the test or over the content. That would be an interesting way to augment reality in an educational environment.
Well, you can certainly see it in terms of medicine and surgical procedures, or anything in which we can't really be doing this on live specimens. So we need to be able to do this and show possible reactions. To me, I've seen it in the Microsoft Holloway a little bit. Now this is a higher level headset where you can pull up a video. It's almost like the Tom Cruise, you know, reaching out and being able to move things that are in midair experience. And that's sort of an augmented reality. They show an example of it where a lady is trying to fix her plumbing, and not only does she have someone pop up on the screen that's a plumber to help her, but he's actually pointing and putting on the screen like which wrench to use from her toolbox as she's looking at the toolbox and all. So that's got potential. I just am not sure how you could do that except with individuals in the classroom rather than whole class right now.
Yeah, but just the concept of augmented reality as opposed to putting them in a different environment is virtual reality. So this augmented reality they're both very similar, and sometimes people confuse them, but they both have, I think, different uses in an educational setting.
Most definitely. So we're going to see in the next year, I'm predicting you're not only going to see a couple of companies produce these for education beyond Google. I think Microsoft has one in the works as well. Very similar concept, and they did a little hackathon to try to get ideas and apps built for it. So we'll see if they're going to be in the realm. And I think we're also going to see a lot of teachers. They're going to try to build their own kind of 360-degree environments with some sort of lessons to go along with them. I know that's going to happen. They have to, because it's not hard to make them with a phone, and the kids are all going to become more aware of this technology and be using it themselves. And we're going to see where that takes us, how much more realistic the classroom is going to be able to immerse your kids in where you want to take them. I'm excited about it. It's what I saw as a reaction from the kids. It is unreal.
Anybody that I show Google Cardboard to is as amazed. It's just seeing people's reaction when they put the headset up. They don't know what to expect. They don't ever know what to expect, and they put that headset on, and just seeing their reaction tells you a lot about how powerful this is.
So if you head to Twitter, the hashtag is Google Expeditions. They reposted one of mine. I was very happy. But Google Expeditions hashtag will show you all of these different schools that are using it right now. You'll see all these kids' pictures up there. Hopefully a few of these link to some more blog posts about it, and just see what's going on here. I'm looking at one right there that's got a really cute picture of a kid trying to examine the Google Cardboard and figure out how it works. So if you are interested as well, they still have the application on there if you'd like Google Expeditions to come to your school when they get around to your area. There is still the Google Expeditions website, and it says, there's a button for you to request. And doesn't mean they'll show up, but if you do get a tour to come your way, you might be one of the schools. They like to have a lot of kids get through it. They really want as many kids to experience it as possible. So if you've got that flexible kind of scheduling that you can do that, particularly elementary schools have a little more flexibility with it. Yep.
Yeah, I think you're right. We're really going to see some changes over the next year. And a lot of teachers will be picking this up. And I look forward to the day when there's an easy way for students to create these environments too. Right. Whether somebody invents an app or a web tool where you can upload your own images and they put them in a VR environment for you.
Well, maybe it's going to be the way their portfolios are going to be built, and the teacher's going to be grading it through a virtual reality of some kind.
Could be.
Is that scary?
I'm reminded of the book Ready Player One. Have you read it? Heard
No,
of
I
it?
haven't read it, but I've heard of it. Yes.
So yeah, if those who haven't heard of it, it's about a futuristic society where everybody lives in virtual reality, and they just sit at their homes and and the kids go to school virtually, and the kids go visit each other's houses virtually, and um, it's it's interesting. It's a good read if you deal with students and want to see what this environment, what people in science fiction are predicting the world's going to look like.
They've predicted a lot of things correctly, so let's see what happens. All right. I think that's a lot for people to chew on.
Yep.
This week.
Yep. So you can find our website at flippedlearningremixed.com. You can find me on Twitter at @tcockrum, TCOCKRUM.
And I am at DigiTeacher, DIGI Teacher, on Twitter.
So we love hearing from listeners. Feel free to reach out to us. And let us know how you would love to use Cardboard or Expeditions or any other virtual reality. We'd love to hear more from our listeners/viewers. So thanks for listening, and until next time.